Hello dear children, welcome to another new video. In today's video, we are going to discuss the most requested and most awaited chapter of our syllabus, A Village Cricket Match, written by A.G. MacDonald. Why I told you it is most awaited or most requested, I have received a number of comments to do this chapter's video. So I also needed some what we can say preparations to do this video, because comparatively little bit tough chapter to explain this. So when I explain this chapter, 100% surely you have to understand that. So I was in the preparation of this chapter in the last 2 or 3 days. So after preparation, I made a good plan to explain this chapter. So as we have done in the last videos, in the same way only by reading each paragraph only we will explain. But why this chapter is little bit tough? There are two things. First thing, to understand the characters, it is little bit difficult. We see some characters and some names in this chapter. We will get some confusion whether he is in which team he is playing for. So that is one of the confusions. And the second thing, some meanings, some new words we see in this chapter. Textbook had given the meanings of the words, but while we read the story, it is little bit difficult to understand. So by telling each word meanings also, we will be going through this chapter. So Village Cricket Match is a funny cricket match story. In this story, we all know cricket, right? We all watch cricket matches also. We know Indian cricket team, we see the World Cup, IPL is there. So cricket is not a new thing for us. It is well known for each and everyone who are watching this video, right? But here, Village Cricket Match is a story of a cricket match. The attraction of the match is no one is there who knows cricket in the match. Number of players are there who are playing the match. We have batting team, we have bowling team, but in both teams, even there is no one person who knows what is cricket. So what will happen, we know. They make different rules on the way of game. While they are playing the game, in between only they are making some new rules. For example, if I say there was an umpire in this match, he called a no ball, even the ball was not bowled. Before throwing the ball, umpire called a no ball. So we know what will be the match, we can imagine. So this same funny match we are going to discuss in this story. So as I told in the beginning of the video, the first confusion is to understand the characters. So before we start the video, I am going to tell you the characters of the story. In this story, we have two cricket teams. Two teams are there. One is Scottish team and one is English team. So team-wise players, characters, let us get to know. In English team, we have Mr. Hardcourt. He is a sexton. The postman called Joe, the blacksmith called Bill, and we have a baker in English team. In Scottish team, we have Livingston, Mr. Shakespeare Pollock, Mr. Southcote, Mr. Hodge. Hodge is the captain of the Scottish team. Youth in the blue jumbo, Major, Mr. Ogilvy, Boone, Professor of Ballistics, Wicket Keeper. This is the Scottish team. So when we enter to the ground, which means when we start the story, we are seeing the death overs of a cricket match where English team is batting and the Scottish team is bowling. So let us see what are the things are going to happen, or we can laugh loudly. So let us begin the chapter. The crisis was now desperate. The fieldsmen drew nearer and nearer to the batsman, excepting the youth in the blue jumbo. Livingston balanced himself on his toes. Mr. Shakespeare Pollock hopped about almost on the top of the batsman and breathed excitedly and audibly. Even the imperturbable Mr. Southcote discarded the piece of grass which he had been chewing so steadily. Mr. Hodge took himself off and put on the Major, who had by now somewhat lived down the quart and a half. In this paragraph, we see the tensions of the fielding team in the death overs. So here, just some more runs enough, maybe 3 or 4 runs enough to win the match for English team, for the batting team. English team is the batting team. For them 2 or 3 runs enough to win the match. So at that time we can imagine the tensions of a fielding team, bowling team. So crisis was now desperate. Everyone can understand what is going to happen. Scottish team is going to fail in the match. English team is going to win the match. So when in the death overs, all the fielding people, fieldsmen, they came nearer and nearer to the batsman, except one man. There was a player, Youth in the blue jumper. Youth in the blue jumper, we can call him as a cloth seller. Blue jumper, he is a garment seller, door by door. We know some people who is selling garments door to door. So here he has no tensions at all. Remaining all the people, they are coming nearer and nearer to the batsman. Livingston, one of the players of Scottish team, he balanced himself on his toes. Shakespeare Pollock, another one player in the Scottish team, he was ready. He came very near to the batsman and he was breathing very excitedly and audibly. He is breathing also, we can listen. He is in full of tension. So very with full of tension he is breathing. Then even the imperturbable Southcote discarded the piece of grass which he had been chewing so steadily. Here Southcote was there. Before some time he was chewing one grass, simply holding one grass and chewing, and he was standing there. Now he thrown everything, removed from this grass and all from his mouth and came near to the batsman. Mr. Hodge, the captain of the Scottish team, captain of the bowling team, Mr. Hodge, he told to Major and he told to all players, be ready. Now anything can happen. Now be ready for that. He just looked on the Major, another one player of Scottish team. Major is already fit. He drank half of a bottle and he was already fit. So by leaving all those tensions, Mr. Hodge also standing to win the match there. Now we are going to the batsman. The batsmen crouched down upon their bats and defended stubbornly. A snick through the slips brought a single. A ball which eluded the publisher's gigantic pads brought a bye. A desperate sweep at a straight half volley sent the ball off the edge of the bat over third man's head and in normal circumstances would have certainly scored one and possibly two, but Mr. Harcourt was on guard at third man and the batsman by nature cautious men, one being old and the sexton, the other the postman and therefore a government official, were taking no risk. Then came another single of a mishit and then an interminable period in which no wickets fell and no run was scored. It was broken at last disastrously, for the postman struck the ball sharply at Mr. Pollock, and Mr. Pollock picked it up and in an ecstasy of zeal flung it madly at the wicket. Overthrows resulted. So here batsman, they are ready to bat now. We have two batsmen on the crease, one a sexton and another one a postman. Sexton, sexton means he is a worker in churches and all. He is ringing bells, digging the field and all, like doing these kinds of job. So of course he would be very strong and very honest. He was working in church, so of course he was very honest person. The another side, another one player, he was a postman. He was a government official. Here A.G. MacDonald nicely digging government officials. He is saying that of course he is government official. No, he won't be ready to take any risk. Government officials, of course, they won't take any risk. So that's why maybe he will not run properly. And also here the same thing only is happening here. Batsman and they were ready to get a single. The bowler, he thrown the ball. He has thrown the ball. Our sexton, he hit, but they had a chance to run, but they are not running here. Why not running? Because of course our government official is not ready to take any risk. But if they run, maybe they can get out. So on that tension, both are not taking any runs. So when the sexton, when he hit the ball went to Mr. Pollock. Mr. Pollock took the ball. He was very happy. He thrown the ball through throw the ball to the wicket. Ball went to somewhere else. They got two overthrows there. They got 2 runs by overthrow there. The scores were level and there were 2 wickets to fall. Silence fell. The gaffers, victims simultaneously of excitement and senility, could hardly raise their pin pods, for it was past 6 o'clock, and the front door of the three horseshoes was now as wide open officially as the back door had been unofficially all afternoon. So after getting the 2 overthrows, the scores were level. Now match is on tie. Just one more run is enough to win the match for English team. And if the Scottish team, if they get 2 more wickets, of course they can win the match. So everyone became silent. Complete ground came into silence. The gaffers means audience, audience of the match. So gaffers, they are very excitedly they are watching the match by holding their pin pots. Pin pot means beer bottles. Senility means that tensions of old age. These gaffers means some old age people who are watching the match. So their excitement and their tensions, frustration, by everything we could see in their hands. They were standing by holding their pin pots, their beer bottles, because already it was 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, the 3 horseshoes, that is a hotel, we can call it as a restaurant or hotel. As at 6 o'clock, they would open the hotel. So they are ready to go for the party. So everyone is very excitedly watching the match. So already the front door is opened because it is 6 o'clock, and the back door was opened in the afternoon only. They opened in the back door. So after the match, they have to start their party. So they are waiting to win. English team as well as the English people, English viewers, they are also excitedly waiting to see what is going to happen on the ground. Because now just 1 more runs enough. They have sufficient 2 more wickets in their hand. 1 run is enough to win the match. So tension begins. The Major, his red face redder than ever, and his chin sticking out almost as far as the Napoleonic Mr. Ogilvy's bowled a fast half volley on the leg stump. Sexton, a man of iron muscle, from much digging hit it fair and square with the middle of the bat, and it flashed like a thunderbolt waist high straight at the youth in the blue jumbo. With a shrill scream, the youth sprang backwards out of its way and fell over on his back. Immediately behind him, so close where the fieldsmen clustered, stood the mighty Boone. There was no chance of escape for him. Even if he had possessed the figure and the agility to perform back somersaults, he would have lacked the time. He had been unsighted by the youth in the jumper. The thunderbolt struck him in the midriff like a red-hot cannonball upon a Spanish galleon, and with a sound of a drumstick upon an insufficiently stretched drum. With a fearful oath, Boone clapped his hands to his outraged stomach and found that the ball was in the way. He looked at it for a moment in astonishment, and then threw it down angrily and started to massage the injured spot, while the field rang with applause at the brilliance of the catch. So here we have our bowler, Mr. Ogilvy. Ogilvy is bowling the ball. He threw the ball. Our Sexton hit the ball very hardly. Ball is going very high. All the fielders are ready to catch the ball. They came down, they came back. Even the youth in the blue jumper, he also was coming back to catch the ball. Behind all these people, at the right position of the ball, there was one man standing, Mr. Boone. Boone was standing. Boone is a very large man. He is very fatty figure. So he was standing there. So everyone was very much agreed that the ball will never miss from Boone's hand. So everyone is waiting for Boone to catch the ball. Boone was standing there. He was standing there. Ball came and hit on his stomach. Here, the hitting of the ball on midriff means stomach. Okay, the hitting of the ball on Boone's midriff is compared with a red hot cannonball upon a Spanish galleon. How one red cannonball going and hitting a big ship and how it's breaking everything. In the same way, the ball came and hit on our Boone's stomach. Boone got too much pain, and suddenly when the ball came and hit his stomach, he held the ball very tightly. So he had no idea the ball is there still. He just held his stomach by pain. At that time, ball was in his hand only. Boone just looked at it with full of tension. He got too much pain. So because of that pain, he took the ball and thrown on the ground with full of angry. So 2 things happened there. Boone got a lot of pain, as well as Sexton is out. So 2 things happened there. Boone, he caught the ball and thrown to the ground, and he started massaging his stomach. He got too much pain. Boone got too much pain. He was massaging his stomach. At that time, all other people, other Scottish team, they started clapping because one more wicket fell down. Boone got the ball, so everyone became happy there. Donald walked up and shyly added his congratulations. Boone scowled at him. I didn't want to catch the damn thing, he said sorely, massaging away like mad. But it may save the side, ventured Donald. Blast the side, said Boone. Donald went back to his place. So now, one more wicket gone, scores are level, one more run needed for English team to win, and one more wicket wants to fall down to win for Scottish team. So when Sexton is out, Boone he caught the ball. At that time, Donald, another one player, he went to congratulate Boone because even though he got pain, he caught the ball. So when Donald went to congratulate, Boone was in full of anger. Boone just called him, "What? We don't come to say anything like that." In full of anger, Boone looked at Donald. Then Boone told, "I didn't want to catch the damn thing." Damn means damn, like the dirty thing. I actually did not want to catch the ball. He said sorely, massaging by massaging his stomach, he told, "I actually don't want to catch the idiot thing. But it may save the side," ventured Donald. "Whatever it is, you saved our side. Blast the side, you go with your side. I got too much pain now. I'm not thinking about all those things. I got too much pain. I'm feeling too much pain now." Donald went back to his place. By listening that, Donald went back to his place. The scores were level and there was one wicket to fall. The last man in was the blacksmith, leaning heavily upon the shoulder of the baker who was going to run for him and limping as if in great pain. He took guard and looked around savagely. He was clearly still in great rage. So next player came. He was blacksmith. Next player came blacksmith. He was already injured and retired hurt first. Now again he came to play. He was not able to run. So he got a runner. One help runner also came. That was a baker. So here two members are coming. One blacksmith, batsman, and came a runner also. He was a baker. So two members came, and when we look at the blacksmith, he was fully confident. Somehow I will win this match. He looked around savagely, like full of anger and full of confidence. Blacksmith looked everywhere. Today definitely I'll hit one run and I'll help my team to win this match. In that full of confidence, our blacksmith came to bat. The first ball he received, he lashed it wildly and hit straight up into the air to an enormous height. It went up and up until it became difficult to focus on it properly against the deep, cloudless blue of the sky, and it carried with it hopes and fears of an English village. Up and up it went, then at the top it seemed to hang motionless in the air, poised like a hawk fighting as it were a heroic but forlorn battle against the chief invention of Sir Isaac Newton, and then it began its slow descent. The first ball our blacksmith faced, he hit very roughly, very hardly he hit the ball. Ball went up. It's going up, going up, going up, and again going up. It was very difficult to find where the ball, that too much height it went up. The ball went up so much height. So when the ball was going up, it was taking the tensions and fears of the English village also. When blacksmith hit the ball, the audience also was looking at the ball. Ball is going again and going. So with more hopes and fears, the ball went upside. Ball had a fight with the law of Newton's law of motion is there, right? So more than that, no, if we have seen the gravitation, law of gravitation. Sorry, it's not law of motion; it is law of gravitation. So one thing, if it is go high, of course the earth has a gravitational force. The thing should come down. That was the law of gravitation, right? We know that. So this ball, it was fight. Writer saying that even the ball had a battle against the chief invention of Isaac Newton also. So as per the Isaac Newton's law, if a thing goes up, it should come down. Here the ball has a fight with the law of Isaac Newton also. Whether it will come down or not, it had no idea. But as per the gravitational law, the ball started coming down slowly. So ball went very high and it started coming down very slowly. So when the ball is coming down, here on the ground many comedy things were going on in the fielding side as well as in the batting side. What are the funny incidents that we will see in the next video? So just wait for the next video. So that's all for today. I hope you understood today's video. Glossary of today's section will be given in the description box. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Take care. Bye.